Okay, welcome everybody to lesson 3. And in this lesson I'm going to teach you all about chords. And I'm going to teach you the basics about, what are chords, melodies, harmonies. I'm going to show you what chords are, and I'm going to give you a very, very special technique that's going to allow you to construct any chord, and that's really going to put you really in a different bracket of musician than just people who try and memorize positions and kind of play robotically. But I'm going to give you some ways and tools that you can use to apply so that you can start learning literally almost any song that has chords. And by the end of this, you're going to have a sense of confidence and direction in exactly what chords are and how you can, as I said, create any chord. So I'm first going to start off by showing you an example of a chord. So this is a C major chord. Now, I'm playing a bunch of notes at the same time. This is called a harmony. Now, you also have melody. So, what's the difference? Well, a harmony sounds like this. Doesn't matter what you're playing. As long as you have 2 or more notes playing at the same time, that is a harmony. Okay, I'll say it again. If you have 2 or more notes playing at the same time, that is a harmony. So, doesn't matter. They don't have to have any correlation with each other. It has absolutely no difference. Then you have melody. So melody is when you have several notes playing one after the other. So here are some examples of melodies. Or it doesn't really matter what it is, as long as you have several notes playing one after the other, that is a melody. So a chord, just like the C major chord, I'll explain why it's called major, why it's called C major and all that stuff, but C major chord would be called a harmony because you have 2 or more notes playing at the same time. But why would it not just be called a C harmony? Well, because a chord is structured. It has some structure to it. So what a harmony is that it could be 2 or more of anything. It could be, it actually does not matter at all. But as soon as you have structure to it, it's a very specific type of structure. So this is based on the C. So now I'm going to actually start to explain what these chords are. So C major, you have what's called a root note, right? So if you take the C major chord, C major, so C would be the chord's based like its root, all right? So it's based off of C. And I'm going to kind of show you what, traditional one-to-one teachers would show you. And I would say, okay, this is C major. Remember those notes. You have C, you have E, and you have G. Great. So you can have a go at playing that. C, E, and G. You're playing that with number 1, 3, and 5 at the same time, and try and keep the correct form. Make sure your wrist, and just be aware of any tension and just relax it, and just try and play that in a relaxed manner. So you want to play F major, for example. Okay, go to F play that with number 1. Could be any F, doesn't matter, but and then play A with number 3 and C with number 5. Play it together and you have F major. So now we know a bit more about chords now. We know that it is a harmony that has some structure, and you might have already guessed what that structure is. It's normally in a 1-3-5 fashion. So 1, 3, 5. And it's not only talking about the actual fingers, but the pattern on the actual keyboards. So generally, you're playing one note, skipping one, playing one, then skipping one, and then playing one. So you have a 1-3-5 pattern. So if I go from C, so I play it, skip, play, skip, play. Now you have C major. What about F major? Skip, play, skip, play. Great. Now, that is really about as far as most teachers will teach you, partly because most teachers are classically trained and they will teach students classically. And I'm not saying that to hate on those techniques or teachers or anything. I'm just saying that the people who go to one-to-one traditional learning, they are going to learn classical training. But and in classical training, you don't find a whole lot of chord knowledge. So the other thing about chords that you might be wondering is, why is it called major? Are there any other options? So it's called major, C major, for a particular reason. You also have some C minor for another reason. So you have major and minor. This is called a tonality. Okay, so tonalities, it is either major or minor. That's all you need to know. So if I say play C major, you're playing C, E, and G. If I say play C minor, you're playing C, E flat, and G. Now that traditional one-to-one teacher will just tell you remember those notes, with no sense of like actual understanding. It's just you're memorizing the notes, which it does, work to a certain degree, but that's not really what you want. One other thing that you need to know, and that is called chord progressions. So chord progressions are the most common way of movement in a song, in a normal pop song, or in fact, most songs in general. So a chord progression might sound like this. That would be one of the most common chord progressions ever, right? And you can have other chord progressions. So it could be, they are normally in groups of 4. So you can kind of bundle it up like that. And you also have a lot of songs which repeat this same group of 4, and then they just changed it. So you have, and then they repeat that for how many other times, and then they get to like a new verse or something like that, and then they change it, and then maybe a different change. So you can see kind of how that works. So why am I telling you this? Well, there are a couple of reasons why chord progression knowledge is going to benefit you. So let's say that, for example, you wanted to go and learn the chords to one of your favorite songs, like right now. Like, for example, like Someone You Loved by Lewis Capaldi is very popular. So I don't know what the chords are, but I'm just going to give some random example. Let's say that it was A minor, F major, G major, and D major. So it might look like, what did you just play? But it is simply just, the right notes to that chord. So A minor, I know that is A, C, and E. I know that F major is F, A, and C. And just like that. I know that because I've played it enough times, and because I actually understand chords, which I'm going to show you in just 1 minute right now. So you go on Google and you find these chords and you look at their names and you're like, wow, okay, now let me go and find how do you actually play them. And then you spend a lot of time trying to play the right notes and getting used to it. And in reality, it shouldn't be like that. And I'm going to show you a great way how to overcome that. So here is this technique I'm going to show you. It is based on the use of tones and semitones that I taught you in the first lesson. So just to recap, a tone is made up of 2 semitones, and a semitone is the next possible step that you could take. So if I'm starting on C, a semitone up would be C sharp over D flat, then a semitone again, D. So I've played 2 semitones, which is equivalent to 1 tone. So 1 tone from C would be D. Another tone, that's a tone. So if I play from E to F, that's going to be a semitone, because it is the next possible note that I could play. Although by ear, it sounds like a tone, but in reality, there is nothing in between for it to count as a tone, since a tone is 2 semitones, but it's a semitone gap. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, I would recommend that you have a notebook of some kind, or that you can just refer back to when you finish the course, so that you have everything in a way that you can understand. So, how to make any single chord ever. It's a very bold statement, but it's very simple and very easy to do. And the reason that people don't learn it, or they don't teach it, is because this is a part of music theory that that you can apply. But in reality, most teachers don't apply theory to the practicality. That's simply just because of the nature of classically trained teachers. They were trained in a classical way, and they teach their students in a classical way. So let's say you wanted to make a D minor chord. Okay, how do you do it? First, you take D, because D is your root note of the chord. Why? Because it's called D minor. If it was called F minor, you start on F. If it's called C minor, you start on C. C major, start on C. If it's called, E flat major, start on E flat. Same principle. Okay, so for you to create any chord, there are two numbers you need to remember. As I said, you have 3, 4. Okay, I'm going to put a comma there. And you also have 4, 3. So you're remembering only two numbers, but you just have to remember the pattern, which is not that difficult. You just reverse the numbers. So you have 3, 4 and 4, 3. Now, what does this mean? So if you want to make a minor chord, you have 3, 4. If you want to make a major chord, I'll write chord here. You use 4, 3. But 3, 4 what and 4, 3 what? So these are semitones. Okay, now what can we do this? If you want to make a minor chord, any minor chord, let's take D, right? So you can look at your piano right now. You hit D. Okay, so you count one semitone up. We're going to count 3 semitones first, okay? So you have D sharp, or you can call it E flat, but I'm going to call it sharp just for the sake of it. So you have D sharp, that's one semitone. So you don't count the initial one, right? So D is 0, D sharp is 1, E natural is 2, then you have F, which would be 3. So we're going to stop there. We're going to mark that F. So I'm going to demonstrate this on the piano, but you're going to mark that F. So it's going to be D and then F. Okay, so we've done 3. Now count 4 from F. Okay, so F is 0, and then F sharp is 1, G natural is 2, G sharp is 3, and A natural is 4. So you have D, F, and A, and that is the D minor chord constructed. It's very, very simple. It's very, very easy. It's going to take you just literally 1 or 2 tries to look at it and do it, and then it's going to be very easy. And in future, it's going to be so fast. And there really are only a set amount of chords that you can play. So in the very near future, you're just going to be able to play the chord without having to calculate it like how I do. So if you want to make a major chord, you count 4 and then 3 semitones, right? Make sure they're semitones, right? The next possible note, right? So if you're on an E natural, an E to F is not a tone, it is a semitone, right? So think of semitones, the next possible note. It's very, very important, because a lot of people in the beginning, they get confused because it's not explained very clearly to them. So I want to be very clear. Semitone, the next possible note. And when you're counting chords, you don't count the actual note you start on. Right, so I'm going to show you what this looks like on the piano, and we're going to do some application, and you're going to impress yourself. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, so hopefully that you have that written down somewhere that you can remember, and I urge you to write things down, because you're activating a different part of your brain. You're activating the prefrontal cortex, which essentially you have to actually process what you're writing. Now, if you want to remember this, even more easily, you want to add some meaning to it, right? So with the 3, 4, that's how you make a minor chord, right? So minor, you're starting with the minor number, the smaller number, okay? Minor, smaller, kind of similar meaning. So 3, 4, that is the minor formula. And if you want to make a major chord, you start with the major number, which is 4. Major, bigger, greater. So 4, 3. Okay, so minor is 3, 4, major is 4, 3. So we said that D minor is D, F, and A. So let's use this technique and see if that's actually right. We got a D, so this is 0. We're going to count 3, because 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now I've got D and F. Then I'm going to count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it works. Especially, so we know for absolute certain it works with minor chords. Now, very important that you get used to playing chords with 1, 3, and 5. I see way too many people play it with 2, 3, and 5. And although it does feel more comfortable to do it, but that's only because your wrists are flat. And you're gonna very rarely actually play chords with that, with this form, unless you're doing some extra stuff like something like that. But for the sake of chords, and when you're gonna play pop songs, that is how you do it. Make sure you're playing with 1, 3, and 5 with the correct form, wrist at a good level, just like that shape. And we're gonna move on to a major chord. So we wanna make F major. Okay, so we go to F. We count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then count 3. 1, 2, 3. And there you go. So we have D minor, F major. There are your examples. Well, what about the black notes? Does it work on black notes? So let's check. So let's take, for example, a C sharp minor chord. It sounds intimidating, but don't let that get you. You are simply, applying the exact same formula to the note. There's absolutely no difference here. So C sharp minor, we go to C sharp. We're gonna count 3. 1, 2, 3. 3 because it's minor. Then we count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is C sharp minor. The only difference that I would note that is actually quite significant is that you're not playing the chord so far away from the black keys. Because you're playing on the white notes, you're over here, right? You're kind of like on this line-ish. But when you're playing black notes, you can't like do that because it's uncomfortable, and as you can see, your wrist contorts in a very bad place, and you don't want to do that. Make sure you're not, getting used to this. You want to push your fingers in, you want to slide it in so that you are able to maintain this curved shape. Make sure that arc is visible in your fingers, and that you're not kind of flattening it out like this. You don't want to be doing that. You want to keep it arced. Okay, so now you're gonna have a go. I want you to make a E major chord. All right, so first of all, you're gonna go find E, and I'm gonna leave the rest to you. Pause the video right now, construct that E major chord, make sure you're playing the right notes, make sure you're playing it with the right fingers and form, and then play back the video, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so with E major, you go to E, and you can count 4, because 4 is for major, bigger, starting with a bigger number. So E0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Playing that with 1, 3, 5. Because you're playing a black note here, you might want to tuck your fingers in a little bit, but don't do it so far in that you're like this, because you only go this deep when you're mostly black notes. Like with the C sharp minor, your pinky and your thumb are on the black notes, so it makes sense. But with E major, you can just play that normally. Whatever feels comfortable, but just don't compromise a good form with your, with your arc here. Okay, hopefully you got that right, and if you didn't, that's completely fine. It is just really down to practice, and if you got it right, then your next challenge is to do it maybe a bit faster, you can decide. But in the meantime, here's your next one. I want you to make an F sharp minor chord. Okay, so you're gonna go find F sharp, and then you're gonna make the chord. It does not matter what octave you use, you can do it. Okay, well, I'm not gonna play the chord, but for example, if you have C minor, you can do it here. Doesn't really matter. You can use your left hand or right hand. If you're using right hand, it's 1, 3, 5. If you're using your left hand, it's 5, 3, 1. Okay, so a C minor with your left hand, 5, 3, 1. G major, G minor, right? Any octave, whichever hand you prefer. So please make an F sharp minor chord and play back the video when you're done. Okay, F sharp minor, that's what it sounds like. Now, the only thing that's remaining here is for you to practice those chords, which I am going to give you tasks for. But the only, really the only other thing that I would suggest for you to, really the only other thing that I would like to explain that could further improve your understanding of this is the kind of difference between the major and the minor tonality, and at least as far as the chord structure is concerned. So if we wanted to play a C major, generally speaking, when you play any major chord, the only difference between the major and the minor, for most chords, not all, but most chords, if you want to go from major to minor, you take your middle finger, the 3, and you go down a semitone. That is usually the case, right? So let's take a D minor up to a D major. D minor, so I know it's D minor because 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, to D major. Now I want you to listen for that difference. The oversimplified version, major is happy and minor is sad. So now you really have the tools to create any chord. Now you do have more complex chords, but they are all based on that foundation chord that you have just learned how to create for any major or minor chord. So, for example, extended chords, right? I'll explain this in future videos. We have inversions. You have, seventh chords. You've got a bunch of stuff. But like I said, I'm going to go more in detail into these chords in a future lesson because I want to give you the basic, the foundation, a strong foundation, so that we can just get onto that case study as soon as possible, which is going to be literally next lesson. But here are your tasks. So do not move on until you've done these to a satisfactory level. So you write this down so that you don't forget. But I want you to create C minor, create C major, then create E major and E minor, and then create C sharp minor and G sharp minor. I want you to create all of those chords and then just practice switching between the major and minor and check if it's right. So for example, if I say, C major, switching from major to minor would be, okay? Like I said, you're mainly moving that middle finger, the third finger, up or down. So if you're going minor up into major, you're moving the middle finger up. If you are already in major, you're already up, and you're going down to minor, your middle finger goes down. For example, D major. I go down to minor. Okay, you don't go from major up to minor. Major would be up and minor would be down. So major, this is up, going down to D minor. Now, is that right? Because you might practice and you might say, okay, I moved my middle finger, but I don't know if it sounds right. So you check it. If you went from D major to D minor, but let's say, for example, you did this, you need to check it. So D minor. So that's the note. So see how this works. So those are your tasks. And I want you to also practice every single chord that you're doing with the left hand and right hand. And then your extension would be to do both at the same time. So for example, whatever you want. Okay, so hopefully you get started on that. I'd suggest you do that, right now, or just wait until whenever you're free. But I will see you in the next lesson, and great job today. I'm very excited for you.